And now, here are your hosts, Yardley and Kinte.
Hello, and welcome to an all-new episode of Talking Hell on Wheels. I am one of your hosts, Kinte, all the way live from Los Angeles, California, and I'm here joined by my main man, co-host, the one and only, the militant one, Yardley. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, Kente. It's always good to be on with you, and I'm very excited about our guest tonight.
Yes, he's a gentleman that we've wanted to talk with for quite a while now, and we're so happy to finally have this opportunity to speak with him. And we also love participation on this show, and there's many ways you can participate. One way is you can go onto our website, and that's indyradio.org. That's indyradio.org. Another way you can participate is you can call in, and that number is 323-522-4601. Once again, that's 323-522-4601. And also, too, if you want to see us live via our video feed, you can go to blab.im, or you can go to the watch live video section on our website, indyradio.org. So many ways that you can join in on this conversation, and we're just so happy that that we are finally able to have this conversation. So I want to first start off by welcoming our guest, David Von Ancken. How you doing? All right. Oh, we had a little bit of feedback from you there. It's probably I don't know if you have some headphones. Maybe that will stop the feedback if there's possible. Yeah. So while we're waiting for David to get his headphones on, I just want to first say that we have so much to talk about with this final episode. It's one of those things that we've been talking about now since they announced that the final episode was the final season was coming. And I'm really interested because me and you haven't talked yet about what we thought about the final episode. So I'm really interested to hear what your thoughts are, Yardley. But we'll get to that in a minute. How you doing, David?
I'm doing great. I thought that I'm getting a double feedback here.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Now it's working.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you just fine.
Me.
Are you getting double feedback, Yardley?
I'm not on my end.
Okay, I'm just hearing myself twice. Bottom line is, I thought it was a great send off for Ancken, for Cullen. You take him to the edge of the continent and let him go. After all we put him through in 5/6 seasons, I thought that was a fitting way to let him go.
Go ahead, Yardley.
No, I was saying I actually have to agree. I managed to have an opportunity to watch the episode a couple of times, and we'll definitely talk about this with David. But there were so many callbacks to the pilot that I'm very excited to talk about tonight.
Well, I thought we would reward people who had watched the whole series, and from the church in the way he's in the confessional to walking through the hell on wheels, right up until the end. There was a lot of visual similarities by design.
Absolutely, and it was definitely something that, if you were a Hell on Wheels fan from the beginning, it definitely brought a smile to your face, because when we saw Cullen enter that church and look up at the Jesus and go, a huge smile came over my face. And then I actually went back and I watched the pilot, and I don't know, it's just one of those things where you kind of feel like everything went full circle, but then at the same time it hits you that, you know what, this thing is over. So I don't know if I should be sad or take another shot of whiskey.
I think a lot of us, we got together, several people of us in the same room to watch it tonight, Ancken and some of the producers. And it really brings back memories. There's a lot of hard work being outside so much and so often through rain, snow, and ice, and everything you can think of. But it's one of those shows that you think it doesn't come around that often. And when he stepped into the church, we couldn't find that Jesus anymore. That crucifix had been wrecked when we went back, rented again. And so I wound up using the same shot from the pilot because it was a clean POV. So we just took it from the pilot. He looks up, he sees exactly the same thing.
Now,
from the
for those
same
who may not know,
episode
David
of
was
number one.
the director on the pilot as well as the finale. And you directed a lot of the premieres too, I believe season 2 and 3, right?
Right. I directed that on season 1.
And
several
you know what's so
seasons too, and
cool?
the first
A lot of
episode
people
of
don't
season
know
3.
this, but the director of a pilot plays a huge part in really setting up the look and feel of a TV show. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Oh yeah, and then in this one, it was the pilot was written by Tony and Joe Gayton, who the creators of the show, and after some changes was picked up by John Worth, who took over and did the final 3 years of the show. And both guys, both camps did a great job keeping Cullen alive and not so well. But in terms of the pilot, we decided to make it a throwback to the 70s, kind of gritty westerns where it's a lot of behavioral elements of the storytelling, not necessarily talky. In fact, we hate it.
Yeah. One thing, and I want to go back to the pilot, and then we'll get back to the finale. But I can only imagine you're a veteran, been in this business for quite a long time. So if you're taking on a pilot, you don't really know how it's going to turn out. If you could ever envision that this show would have went on for 6 years, 5 seasons, and all of it was able to accomplish. I mean, could you see that at all when you took over in the filming the pilot? Did you see that this show had?
I did. I mean, you only hope that a show could have such strong legs and keep people interested season over season. But the fact that a guy who is rooted in history, so Anson's playing a fictional character, of course, but he's surrounded by people, Thomas Durant, Collis Huntington, and lots of others in the show who were real. And you'd hope that when you're riding that wave of historical fiction, you can keep adding to it enough that people will always find it interesting. And I find that the character that Anson created out of in the first episode even was something that was quiet, dangerous, damaged. He had all the tenets of something that you can really kind of vest yourself in year over year.
Something else along the lines, it only seems fitting that you would be the person that would close things out. How far ahead did you know that they wanted you to close the series out the way that you started it? Did you have a lot of notice, or was this something that was always in the works for quite a while?
I think in TV, it's never in the works for too long. But John Worth and Jerry Gold, two of the producers on the show, called me and asked me if I could be available to finish it out. And since I hadn't worked on the last couple of seasons, I was busy in LA and stuff. I thought that would be great, and it was just such a terrific cast and terrific crew, terrific writers. It was really a fun group that managed to more or less stay intact. Over the
you know what? That's
seasons.
real awesome. And Kente had brought this up, earlier in the show. You've had a lot of opportunity to open up different seasons of the show, and every time that you opened up a season, Cullen Bohannon had kind of advanced, to a certain stage in his character. I think Big Bad Wolf, which was season 3? Kente? Yes, and it just seems like every stage that your hands are in, he's always transforming as a character, and it must have been so cool at the end of the day to kind of see everything come full circle.
That first day of season 3, episode 1, might have been one of my favorite days of shooting. I mean, we lucked out because we showed up in Calgary and it was brown and dry, and it was, I think, March or something. So we had gone up there to get it snowing. And that night it snowed 3.5 feet. And when we got to the set, so deep that only the cameraman, Anson, and myself could make it into the woods in the areas near the river. So pure luck that we got amazing snow. And Anson, I had him dive into it. I had him take his clothes off and all around the snow. You see, some of it made it to the final cut. There's an enormous amount of amazing footage we shot that day. Although the wolves, oddly enough, were big pussies and wouldn't come out of their cage.
Oh, man.
We could not get the wolves to attack Anson, so I gave him the power to cook carefully. A couple of shots of a wolf running by is all he could coax this big bad wolf to do. And I took a dummy stuffed wolf and I said, now's the chance to earn your keep, Anson. Wrestle with the wolf in the snow. Threw the dummy at him. And ultimately it worked, but one of those moments where you've got the sun setting on you and it's about to go down 40 degrees, and you have to get the shot. And Anson just stepped up and he didn't budge. He just did it and made it work. And at the end of the day, that was one of the most beautiful, I'd say, openings I've ever been involved with.
Now, at what I wonder, going back to the pilot, at what point of the process does the pilot director come on the scene? Is it like late into the process before they're about to?
No, I mean, it's early. If you do it right, sometimes people get hired to just come and fix things. But the script had been written. It was being retweaked and rewritten by the Gay brothers. Where we were shooting was still up in the air. Style of shooting was still up in the air. Pretty much all choices had yet to be made. Casting was still up in the air. We found Anson on stage in New York after looking at 60 some odd people for the role.
Mm-hmm.
Common walked in to casting and with no dialogue, he just picked up a fake hammer, took off his shirt and started hammering a big spike into the ground. I thought, done. He's our guy.
Oh, that's great.
So it was myself, Jeremy Gold, and the Gayton brothers who sat in casting for, I would say, a month, finding the right people.
How many people did you guys go through for the character of Durant? It almost seems like Colomini was like a no-brainer, but were there any? How many other choices did you guys go through for him?
There was a lot of people who were interested in it. With someone like Colm, it's an offer-only situation. He had a big career before he met us on Wheels, and we all liked him. He's able to pontificate, but still have an edge to him that's kind of dangerous. And that's where we thought Thomas Durant needed to be. He was easier to cast. We had a short list, and when we got to him, he was available, and once he read it, I think
what, that's awesome. And seeing as we have we're talking about Colin, and I'm going to kick it over to you in a second, Kente. Another parallel that was kind of exhibited in the series finale was, first we had Bohannon's introduction into the church, and we got that. But then, you guys kind of segued into Durant. And, he made a big speech trying to recruit everybody to get on the railroad in the pilot right after that epic scene when we were introduced to Cullen Bohannon. And in the finale, he's basically, on trial. And some of the parallels between what happened was in the pilot, he was saying that he would be looked at, as a caitiff, pretty much a scapegoat. And that's exactly what happens at the end of the series. All of the work is done and everybody's making him the scapegoat. But I think only Colomini can pull off those long diatribes.
Oh,
I think in the finale court kind of sequence in front of the Senate hearing, you have Bohannon say the Transcontinental Railroad could not have been built without Thomas Durant. That's his mantra, and that kind of speaks to exactly theme of the whole show. There's the loyalty there that wasn't around to begin with, but was earned. And at the end, he's not going to sell out.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call him his friend, but at least someone who you respect.
Absolutely. So I guess at the end of the day, Durant ended up being the zebra.
That's exactly right. I'm glad you noticed.
Now,
and in real life, Durant, who made 1879, I want to say he made $5 million in one day on the New York Stock Exchange by shorting various companies he was in the process of destroying. Died, I believe it was in Vermont, a pauper by himself in some unheated cabin.
wow. Now, did you guys shoot the scenes in DC? Did you shoot it in Calgary?
We shot, except for that sailboat sequence in the finale, we shot every other scene in Calgary.
Oh, okay.
And so we found Calgary's not known for preservation of architecture. Anything old is pretty much summarily destroyed and put up new kind of oldest type buildings. We found an old church that no one had taken down, and we kind of CG'd the rest.
Yeah, you did a great job because it looked real legit. You know, like I was like, wow, it's really good. Yeah, so kudos to that. Those scenes were really good, and
I like the idea of Custer and Bohannon shooting guns, and in the distance is the Capitol.
Yeah.
So they're out in a swamp in Northern Virginia shooting.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, that was really cool. Great casting too, by the way. Of Custer, the guy, the actor did a fantastic job. I mean, to come in on the last episode of such a great show, and then you almost wanted to see more of that character. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
You're gonna tease us with this
for precisely 8 months until he gets shot up with the arrows.
I know, right? Should do it off.
But it was fun. I think it was fun. Great actor. Fun for the writers to let another historical figure creep in.
Yeah.
Someone who most people know his demise, yet he's still got that hubris and that sort of bristly nature early on.
And I love some of the dialogue that Tom Brady and Jamie O'Brien slipped in for his character. The fact that he says ship out, kill some engines, and ride back to Washington a hero, which was exactly what he wanted to do. I think it was before the Battle of Little Bighorn, right?
And that's what he was trying to convince Bohannon to do. So you get the feeling if Bohannon said yes, he may have been involved with Little Bighorn. That would have been the end of him.
Right. No.
There was a lot of influences I took from some in the pilot and certainly the first couple of seasons in storytelling. Little Big Man, interesting film that was oddly enough shot like 20 miles. We shot the pilot in I think it was 74 with Dustin Hoffman. And some of those early Clint movies where he took over from Leone directing, High Plains Drifter, etc. Some of those ones where there's not a lot of talk. That's what we were going for.
And you can feel it too. It had that feel. The good thing about the last episode was it didn't feel like any other Hell on Wheels episode, and it felt like a callback too, though. You know, it had like both of that going for it. It felt different, and it felt like, and you can feel the callback to the pilot and all of that kind of stuff. So you did a really good job. It gave us. I thought it was a very fitting end to such a great show, and I liked how the very end, like we see him going back to China or going to China, but I liked how it ended there. Like I don't think we needed any more than what we got. I thought it was perfect. I thought you guys did
I was on the fence about sending him to China, but when I saw the final cut, I thought it was a good choice. I thought the alternate could have been letting him just get to the dock's edge, look at the water, and that's the end of it. He's made it to the edge continent farther than any other Western has ever made it. There's no place else to go.
You know what? I think that it
That's
would
the
have
end.
worked.
You know what I thought was
But I
you know what I
thought when I
thought was
saw
going
the
to happen
images,
though? Seriously, I thought he was going to be looking at the water, and then remember he had pissed off the Chinese bosses, or potentially. I thought somebody was going to come from the back and shoot, like get him like in the end or something like that. Like he was going to have his Carlitos Way moment or something. Right.
that would have been the Sopranos
Oh
ending.
man, that would have been kind of sweet. Now that I think about it, but you know how many people would have like thrown their remotes at the TV at least.
This is not really working.
I know. I love it though. It was like, yeah.
I think early on we thought, unless he somehow earns it to not make it out of this, Starks is a pretty dark character. And so I think, at least from the gates early on, that at some point
Yes,
he's going to go, live by the knife, die by the knife type thing. But as the seasons rolled out, rightly so,
we
I
always
think
thought
he
me
deserved
and Yardley always thought it was going to end bad for him. We always thought that he was going to eventually die, but like I said, it worked though. It really worked the way that it ended. That there's no disappointment, anything, because a lot of great shows have terrible finales. I'm talking about like all-time great shows have terrible finales, and you guys really did an excellent job of not falling into maybe some of the traps that other shows have done and stuff like that. And I thought that was pretty. I thought it was pretty excellent because how do you close off a show that's been on for like 6 years? You know what I mean? Like it's tougher than people realize.
You got to be very careful. I think that it's you're right. It's difficult to do it. It's difficult to do it to please an audience, to please yourself, and more importantly, to please the character. Really, it's like, what does the character deserve? If you think of it like that, well, you have a choice. You kill him, let him live. Certainly, the murderer who he is at first deserves probably to die, but he goes through some serious penance. He suffers, and at the end of it, perhaps he deserves a second chance. I always liked westerns, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. A lot of those very clean '70s westerns that have a simple theme. I always wondered what the characters did after the movie ended. Where were they going? Where did their adventures go on to? I kind of like those open-ended. You see Clint ride off into the sunset on half a dozen of those, and where's he going the next day? Same thing for Colin Bohannon. At the end of it, you don't know where he's going to go. He could wind up going back to the States, or he could be totally in China.
The way that y'all did things, I don't think that you really could have failed. As Kente had mentioned, we had been predicting that he would die in the end. And what really made me think that you were going to go there was when he went into church and then he peels off that piece of wood and you see the bullet hole. And then you kind of feel like that's kind of foreshadowing. He sees the bullet hole. He kind of feels like he's gotten that release. And when I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, he's about to die. Like I just knew he was going to die. And I was just kind of sitting back watching Twitter and Facebook because I knew it was going to explode if he got killed. But you guys actually, I think you guys did the right thing, but I don't think that you would have lost in any direction that you would have.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad. And listen, I'm glad you guys watched the whole thing. There's a lot of reaction. I've been getting reaction from people who have seen the entire series.
See,
I'm working on a show now which has a crew of 175, and I got approached by half a dozen people the next day. And they'd all watched every episode.
Oh wow! Okay. All right, we have a couple of questions from the chat room. Alan wants to know what do you look for when you direct a show or any project? What is your thought process on a project? I think he means picking a project to work on.
Picking a project. This was the first pilot I ever directed. And I've gone on to kind of stay with mostly these behavioral stories. I like stories that can be told with little talk. a few years before making Hell on Wheels, I wrote and directed a feature that, oddly enough, was a Western that crossed the same period of time and actually crossed. There was a transcontinental railroad in it called Seraphim Falls. And that was a Liam Neeson, Pierce Brosnan, two guys going at each other and trying to, it's a revenge kind of violence begets violence story that had some themes that are very similar to Hell on Wheels, in terms of redemption, how do you deserve it? But if you're looking at projects, contemporary or period, I just look for something that's curious to me. Is there a character that makes me think that I can relate to personally, but more importantly, that he can grow and I can see, or she can grow and be interested in what their choices are year after year. You don't want, I think in TV, the big fear is always that you get stuck with something that you run out of ideas. And I think it's pretty easy to cherry pick shows.
Tashida wants to know, is there a project that you have been really wanting to produce? And what is your dream project?
This was about as close to a dream project as you can get. You make a feature, a few years later, the producer, Jeremy Gulf, called me up and he said, I saw this movie you made. It'd be perfect for this idea we've got. And it's in a continuation of a story like that. It's very simple, behavioral, and it's a time when people didn't chit-chat. They just get to the point. And a lot of times the point is at the end of a 45. And so at that point, that was a dream project. Now, I'm producing and directing a show called Code Black on CBS right now. Interestingly, it's a hospital show. It's one big room, yet it's surprisingly behavioral. And it's characters that you feel can grow and they surprise you. So you're always curious about what they're going to do. And so that's also a very interesting show. I think I'm producing a show that we're looking to set up a show. It's actually been purchased, and hopefully you'll see it on the air. That's it's as out there as anything that I've ever heard of. Written by the Gavin brothers again, about a guy who comes home one day and feels he may or may not be going crazy. It's called. We don't have a title.
I also see
right
that you have some things coming up. Something that's definitely in my age bracket, and I think it's self-explanatory. For those of us who are old enough to remember, MacGyver. How did you get up on that?
MacGyver is, I think, it's a reboot of the 80s. And it's sort of being reconfigured a number of ways right now, and you'll see it CBS in the fall. And it's trying to find a way to contemporize that cheesy mullet-wearing dude who became a verb and is popular in like 200 countries still with today's audience. And, why is he popular? Why did that last? Of all the 80s shows, why are people excited to see this one? And I think it's because it's nice to know he's out there, because he's not he may be like a dummy in some ways to get himself in trouble, but he's going to get himself out of trouble.
Really excited about that.
Want to hear something funny, David? When I was getting ready for this interview, I looked at your IMDb, and the first thing I saw was MacGyver. And I'm like, dang, this guy go way back. And then I was like, oh, 2016.
Hopefully not that far back.
I was like, oh man, he started long. And then I looked at the date. I was like, oh shoot, okay, this is a new one. so it threw me off a little bit. So what we're gonna do is, how about we're gonna ask you to refresh your browser real quick, and that should clear up the technical difficulty, David. So just hit the refresh button.
Right here?
And while we, the top of your browser. So that should That should do that. All right. So while we're waiting for David to come back in, um, there's a couple of other programs I want to ask him about that he's worked on um, over the years. We're getting some feedback.
I'm gonna try one more time.
Is that the technical difficulty? All right. Can you hear me, Yardley?
Yeah, I can hear you're fine.
So now I can't bring you on the show without asking you about a show that you directed, Californication. I really enjoyed that show. What was that like working on that show? I can only imagine. I mean, you had such a great cast and a great material. Were you on from the beginning? All right. Yeah, great show. And also, he could have been his great granddad. They had a lot of similarities, as you were saying. Yes, for sure. They would have definitely enjoyed drinking together if they were in the same space. So that's yes. And also too, we had before you came in, Alan in the chat room was asking about the Tut series. What was that like working on that? Uh, I can only imagine because I remember, if I remember correctly, that show did very well on television, right? Right. Mhm. Right. Wow. Yeah, definitely. Good stuff.
You know, something that's kind of interesting.
Mhm. Oh, hello. Now before we say goodbye, I want to we talked about the MacGyver
You
piece
hear
is
me,
coming
David?
up and potentially something with the Gatons. Are there any other programs that we should be on the
David,
lookout for, or any?
can you hear me? I actually
Yeah, I
can't.
can hear you. Can you
Hold
hear
up
me?
one second. Let me refresh.
Okay. Uh, are there any other movie projects or? Mhm.
Hey, David,
Wow, that
can you hear
sounds
me?
really good. That's.
Okay.
Can you hear me, Yardley? Okay, that sounds
Yeah,
really
yeah.
good,
I just couldn't
actually.
for a second, so I
Uh,
refreshed.
the Republic. Okay, and now is there a network attached to it yet? Oh, okay, all right. That sounds really good. I'm gonna definitely keep on the lookout for that. That sounds really cool. Yardley, he was just saying another potential Anson Mount TV series. And it sounded really good too. Yeah. All right.
Oh, okay, cool.
Now you want. Oh wow. Now you wanted to say something, Yardley. Go ahead, Yardley.
Yeah, I'm just getting a
Okay,
little
he's having.
yeah.
Mhm. All right, so yeah, he was having technical difficulties. How can people get you in social media? And do you have a website potential for people to look and see what you have coming out? Uh oh. All right.